Being a superstar athlete means being a public figure and a role model for kids growing up around the world. However, NBA players, like all athletes, are human, and some have made some shocking mistakes during their careers and even wound up going to jail. Darren Collison. Darren Collison was drafted by the New Orleans Hornets in 2009, but after just 10 years in the NBA, he retired in 2019. His sudden retirement came as a surprise to the basketball world. Prior to the announcement, he had been expected to receive multiple contract offers for $10 million or more. Collison said the reason he chose to retire was because he's a Jehovah's Witness and wanted to spend more time focusing on his faith. Having grown up in a religious household just outside of downtown Los Angeles, Collison was a standout point guard in high school and ranked 16th in the country. He then went on to become a player in the winningest class in modern UCLA history. Collison played for the Bruins in a record-tying 142 total games. Collison was a shoo-in for the 2009 NBA draft, and he ended up getting picked 21st overall. His basketball career had now blossomed, and everything in Collison's life was looking like a dream come true. That is, until Memorial Day in 2016.
The mugshot shows Darren Collison with a serious expression to match the serious domestic violence charge he's now facing. Deputies taking the Kingsguard into custody at his Granite Bay home after receiving a call from a woman reporting she was being assaulted inside the residence at 1 o'clock in the morning on Memorial Day.
The shocking news broke the following morning to an astounded basketball world. Nobody imagined Collison would have ever done something like this. There was nothing in his life up to that point to suggest that he was violent or an abusive person. His arrest came in the middle of a 3-year, $16 million contract he had signed with the Sacramento Kings. Kings organization was quick to issue a statement amid the breaking news, saying, "We've been made aware of the situation. Sacramento Kings condemn violence of any kind." Just hours after Collison's arrest, while NBA fans in Sacramento were still reacting to the breaking news, the sheriff's office released additional details about the case. Apparently, Collison had also been driving on a suspended license, and this added 2 additional misdemeanors to his already serious charges. The sheriff's office also stated that they would not be releasing the name of the woman who had reported the assault, but described her as being visibly injured upon their arrival at the scene. The unidentified woman had reported the assault from Darren Collison's home in Granite Bay. Granite Bay is an extremely wealthy area just a few miles northeast of Sacramento. Many famous former Kings players have also lived there, including DeMarcus Cousins, Chris Webber, Jason Williams, and many others. The neighborhood has even been called home by some A-list celebrities, including Eddie Murphy. Collison was released on bail shortly after being arrested. However, he was scheduled to face trial in early September. During the months leading up to his trial, Collison remained largely out of the public eye during the offseason. The Kings were one of the worst teams in the NBA at the time and hadn't come close to making the playoffs. The team had also just fired their head coach, George Karl, and replaced him with Dave Georgia, in the hopes that shaking things up could possibly turn things around for the struggling team. Needless to say, it was a very chaotic time for the Sacramento Kings and their fans. It wasn't until Friday, September 2nd, that there were any developments in the Collison story. After appearing in court to face trial, the 29-year-old Collison pled guilty to the charge of misdemeanor domestic violence. Despite the fact that police described the woman he attacked as being visibly injured, Collison received a controversially lenient sentence from the judge. He was sentenced to just 20 days in jail, followed by 3 years of informal probation and mandatory participation in an anti-domestic violence program. Collison was also required to perform community service, but only 20 hours of it. Collison also showed up to the courtroom with a prepared statement, which was released by the Kings following his guilty plea. "Words cannot describe the feelings and regret that I have been experiencing the last few months," he said. "This is far from who I am as a person, and not something I am proud of. I have apologized to my beautiful wife that I have known and loved since high school." While never admitting to it directly, the statement was widely perceived to reflect that the unnamed woman Collison had assaulted was indeed his wife. J.R. Smith. J.R. Smith has managed to become one of the more well-known players in the NBA during his 16-year career. An exceptionally athletic shooting guard, Smith has played for 5 different NBA teams and won 2 NBA championships, both alongside LeBron James. However, it isn't just his success that has put Smith in the national spotlight. It's also been his propensity for controversy.
I chased him down and whooped his ass.
As recently as May 2020, Smith was seen on camera beating up a man who had allegedly vandalized Smith's truck. Smith is also uniquely famous for his unfortunate tendency to make errors. In January of 2014, during his years with the Knicks, Smith made an unexpected blunder in the final seconds of a close game against the Rockets. This one error cost New York the game. However, it would pale in comparison to the world-famous error Smith would later make in Game 1 of the 2018 NBA Finals, which many basketball critics would soon describe as the most costly blunder in NBA history. LeBron's frustration with Smith was so animated, it quickly became a global meme, and host Stephen A. Smith provided an infamous response to SportsCenter after the game.
But number two, I don't really know what words I can describe that are fit for FCC airwaves to explain the tragic decisions by J.R. Smith.
All of this probably made J.R. Smith a household name among basketball fans. Yet, there is still another feature in his unique story that's less known and probably the most shocking of all, his driving record. Throughout his NBA career, and quite possibly long before it, J.R. Smith has had a tumultuous relationship with motor vehicles. In 2011, he was cited for riding a motor scooter without a valid license. This was obviously a small infraction that might happen to anybody. However, JR made things significantly worse when he failed to show up in court the following year. This led to him being arrested in Miami in May of 2012. Prior to that, JR had been behind the wheel in a number of serious car accidents. The first to make sports headlines was all the way back in 2007, during Smith's 5 years with the Denver Nuggets. Both he and his teammate, Carmelo Anthony, were involved in an accident in the Denver area and ended up missing the team shoot-around. Although the accident occurred in Carmelo's vehicle, JR was the one driving. Luckily, nobody was injured. But this wasn't the last time JR would cause an accident. Just a few months later, Smith was involved in a serious accident in his home state of New Jersey. He was driving an SUV carrying himself and two of his friends, Andre Bell and Carl Marshall. After reportedly running through a stop sign, Smith slammed into another car. Unfortunately, neither Smith nor Andre Bell were wearing seatbelts, and both were sent flying through the SUV windshield and out onto the street. Smith sustained bruises and scrapes, but was not seriously injured. However, his friend Andre Bell suffered very severe head injuries, and tragically, he died at Jersey Shore University Hospital 2 days later. No other people were seriously injured in the accident. However, the death of his friend was surely a devastating event in Smith's life. To make matters worse, Smith was subsequently sued by the Bell family for Andre's wrongful death. On June 30, 2009, he was sentenced to 90 days in jail and 500 hours of community service for reckless driving. According to the Denver Post, Smith served only 24 days in jail before being released. In total, J.R. Smith has been arrested 5 times during his NBA career, more than any other active player. In October 2007, the same year he was involved in 2 car accidents, Smith was charged with assault, destruction of property, and disturbing the peace at a nightclub in Denver. As recently as 2018, he turned himself into the NYPD for criminal mischief after destroying the cell phone of a fan trying to film him. Despite his run-ins with the law and the tragedy of his friend's death, J.R. Smith has still managed to become a multi-million-dollar sports star and sustain a career for close to 2 decades. While not currently an active member of the Lakers roster, Smith has yet to announce his retirement and may have some of his career still left ahead of him. Kentavious Caldwell-pope, another shooting guard who won a ring in 2020 alongside J.R. Smith, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who has been with the Lakers since 2017. Prior to moving to California, Pope had been playing for the same team that originally drafted him back in 2013, the Detroit Pistons. Pope was one of the best high school players in the entire country back in the late 2000s. Growing up in Georgia, he averaged 31 points on his high school varsity team and was selected for both the McDonald's All-American game and the Jordan Brand Classic game. Pope graduated high school in 2011 and was ranked the 3rd best shooting guard in the country at the time. He played 2 years as a Georgia Bulldog before declaring for the NBA draft in 2013. Detroit selected Pope with the 8th overall pick, by far the highest of any of the players on this list. He immediately went to work, justifying his high draft selection too. Pope immediately became one of the Pistons' principal scorers, leading the team in 3-pointers made. Coach Stan Van Gundy also felt that Pope was the team's best perimeter defender, and as a result, he also led the team in minutes played overall. In 2016, the Pistons made the playoffs for the first time in nearly a decade, thanks in part to Pope's consistent effort on both ends of the floor. However, just 1 year later, things changed dramatically. In March of 2017, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was arrested for driving while intoxicated. According to police, he was clocked driving 45 miles an hour in a 25-mile-an-hour zone. His blood alcohol level was also reported to be 0.08, which is equal to the limit. Pope was just barely too drunk to drive legally, but police were strict and Pope was forced to show up in court a few months later. He pled guilty to DUI charges in June of 2017. Pope was suspended for 2 games and forced to comply with the mandatory screening program for drug and alcohol use. This resulted in a 25-day jail sentence. In the midst of this, the Detroit Pistons had waived Pope and made him a free agent. However, controversially, Pope was soon signed by the Lakers and was allowed to play while serving jail time. This didn't go over well with many in the basketball universe.
I have a problem with the fact that you're being let out of jail to go and participate in basketball games.
Despite having to bounce back and forth from the court to a jail cell for a month, Pope managed to play well enough for the Lakers that he resigned in July 2018 for $12 million. Many, including Stephen A. Smith, felt there was something unfair about this given that Pope had essentially not served his time in any meaningful sense. However, the controversy is completely behind him, and Pope is undoubtedly looking to win back-to-back championships in 2021 alongside LeBron James and Anthony Davis.